Among the familiar faces of the British royal family, Princess Anne has always been different. A quiet force of duty, discipline, and unmatched resilience. She wasn't in the headlines for scandals or grand speeches. Instead, she gave over 400 engagements a year, rain or shine, without fuss or fanfare. She served with loyalty, stood beside her mother Queen Elizabeth II through every major event, and became the only female royal to hold honorary military rank. She didn't crave attention. She simply showed up, always on time, always prepared, always dependable. So when the news came that Princess Anne was stepping back, it didn't just shock the public, it stunned the institution. This wasn't a retirement. It was a statement. Her departure raised uneasy questions. Had the pressures finally broken the strongest among them? Could something deeper be unraveling inside the royal walls? Under Edinburgh's grey skies, she walked out of her home of decades, not with ceremony, but with calm grace. Loyal staff lined the path in tears. There were no speeches, no applause. Just a silent goodbye that hit harder than words ever could. And had endured it all. Family scandals, royal feuds, the Queen's death, and the drama surrounding Harry and Meghan, without ever wavering. But sources say this decision didn't come from exhaustion. It came from years of quiet frustration. She had been sidelined, her voice diminished. And perhaps most painful was her long-standing tension with Queen Camilla, a woman and never fully accepted, especially as a lifelong defender of Diana. With Camilla now crowned, Anne's disillusionment reportedly deepened. She feared values like honor, loyalty, and discretion were being lost. Then came Princess Catherine's illness. Anne had long admired her, considered her one of the few who truly understood the weight of royal life. The silence from the palace in the face of Kate's struggle shattered her faith. If even Kate can't be protected, what hope is left for this family? She allegedly confided. Her departure wasn't just physical, it was symbolic. And as the castle gates closed behind her, the atmosphere shifted. Inside and outside the palace, people felt it. Something essential had quietly slipped away. London may still function, the monarchy may still move forward, but the hole and leaves is undeniable. She wasn't just a royal, she was the backbone of the old guard. Her absence is a warning. Quiet, but thunderous. The last royal who never complained, never backed down, and never needed the spotlight has stepped away. And now, the question lingers. Who, if anyone, can fill her shoes? Princess Anne's departure wasn't marked by trumpets or ceremony. It was quiet, dignified, and deeply human. She had lived her royal life without fanfare, and now she was leaving it the same way. But that silence hit harder than any grand goodbye ever could. Her quiet dedication had embodied everything the monarchy once stood for. Service without spotlight, duty without ego. And now, without warning, that presence, the calm, steady force who had weathered every royal storm, was gone. Not just from the palace halls, but from the very foundation of the royal family. No one thought the day would come. The Iron Lady of the monarchy, the unshakable symbol of loyalty and resilience, quietly slipped away. To the public, she was the Princess Royal. But inside those palace walls, she was something far more personal. To her longtime staff, she was family. This wasn't just a relocation or a retirement. It was a severing of deep emotional ties. One staff member who had served her for 27 years recalled, "She didn't just know my name. She knew my daughter's birthday." That wasn't protocol. It was real care. Princess Anne never saw her staff as beneath her. They were companions, and her warmth ran deeper than any royal duty could require. When word spread that she was leaving her Edinburgh residence, the atmosphere turned heavy. Some cried behind doors. Others stood frozen, too emotional to speak, watching her convoy disappear down the drive. In the palace, nothing feels the same. The familiar rhythm she brought, her footsteps in the hall, her quiet goodnights, her steady hand on the royal pulse, is gone. The silence she left behind isn't empty. It's loud. In Scotland, The people who had seen her at charity events and quiet visits felt a similar ache. She was never flashy, but she made people feel seen. And now, that subtle magic has vanished. In London, the royal machinery keeps turning, but not without strain. She had carried so much on her shoulders with so little complaint. Now that weight has shifted to others, and they're already showing signs of pressure. King Charles, battling his own health issues and public scrutiny, now faces the future without his most loyal ally. And his rock, firm, loyal, unflinching, was the one person who told him the truth, who worked tirelessly behind the scenes to ease royal tensions. Without her, the palace feels less anchored, less sure. Her departure wasn't just a goodbye, it was a warning, and it left everyone asking the same uncomfortable question: who can take her place? So far, the answer is no one. Not William, not Kate, not even Harry. The legacy and leaves is vast and rooted in quiet strength that few today can replicate. She wasn't just a royal, she was the bridge between tradition and relevance. And now that bridge is gone. Behind the scenes, the pressure is mounting. King Charles reportedly called emergency meetings with close advisors and Prince William. Talk of reform is underway, stripping back outdated ceremonies, reshuffling duties, attempting to breathe new life into a monarchy that suddenly feels fragile. Yet even amid the policy talks and whispered strategies, one truth lingers. Anne's departure wasn't just personal, it was symbolic. If even she, devoted, tireless, stoic, felt it was time to step away, what does that say about the system itself? Maybe her quiet goodbye wasn't surrender, but her final statement. Maybe years of quiet sacrifice finally wore her down. And in walking away without a fuss, she may have said more than any royal speech ever could. Now, the monarchy stands at a crossroads. It can continue to mask its cracks behind golden traditions, or it can face the reckoning Anne's exit has forced into the light. Because beneath all the formality and grandeur, there's a silence now, and that silence might be the most honest sound the royal family has made in decades. She left quietly, with dignity, but behind that silence was a storm of emotion. In her final weeks at her Edinburgh residence, Princess Anne was rarely seen. She wandered the familiar gardens alone, sometimes pausing beneath the tree where she once sat with Queen Elizabeth II. Her steps were slow, almost like retracing a life built on unwavering duty. There were no grand farewells. Instead, she left handwritten notes on desks, personal gifts, books, scarves, a shared memory, and unspoken goodbyes that moved her staff to tears. One aide found an unfinished cup of tea and an open notebook still resting on her desk. She didn't say she was leaving, one said, but we all knew. Her departure wasn't just the end of a royal role, it felt like losing a part of the family's soul. And never chased attention. She served in silence, led with grace, and left without a spotlight. But something changed the moment she stepped away. A strange stillness settled over the castle. Her steady rhythm, once unnoticed, was suddenly missed. The air felt heavier. The quiet, sharper. In Scotland, people mourned the absence of the woman who had always been there, reliable, present, quietly powerful. In London, the monarchy pressed on, but the seams began to stretch. Her duties, once handled with ease, now sat uneasily in other hands. Tension crept into royal halls. And still, no one spoke it aloud, but everyone felt the shift. Then came the discovery. Inside her private quarters, tucked away in a locked drawer, staff found a hidden journal and a sealed envelope marked with Queen Elizabeth II's insignia, meant to be opened only after Anne's death. Her journal, written in her exacting hand, was raw and deeply personal. No polished speeches, no careful edits, just the truth. She wrote of family fractures, lonely nights, and a lifetime of sacrificing truth for loyalty. The entries hinted at secrets, choices made behind closed doors that could shake the monarchy's image to its core. The letter from the Queen remains unread by the public, but those who glimpsed it say it left and shaken and silent for hours. Whatever was inside changed her. Some believe this wasn't just a quiet retirement, it was calculated. A passing of responsibility, yes, but also a message. In her writings, and questioned the future of the crown, the strain on William, and the buried scandals no one dared to speak of. If the truth stays hidden, the shadows will devour the people's faith in us, she wrote, underlining it twice. Even more alarming were transcripts she had quietly recorded. Conversations from private meetings between King Charles and Prince William, filled with tension and betrayal. Her notes revealed a royal house in quiet disarray. Now, that journal and the Queen's letter have been secured. The palace remains silent. But the ripple has begun. Whispers swirl. Investigators are watching. And the public waits, not for gossip, but for truth. Because if Anne's farewell was more than just an exit, if it was the beginning of long-buried truths rising to the surface, then her silence wasn't just powerful. It was seismic. Behind the polished royal facade, not all was peaceful. Anne's quiet distance from Queen Camilla was never officially acknowledged, but never hidden. To Anne, Camilla's presence wasn't just personal. It represented a betrayal of the values she had lived her entire life defending. To her, royalty wasn't glamour. It was honor, discipline, service. And when that legacy began to shift, Anne didn't fight it, but she also didn't pretend to accept it. Her quiet exit now feels less like a retreat, and more like a warning. When Charles and Diana's marriage crumbled in scandal and heartbreak, Anne was devastated, not just as a sister, but as someone who had spent her life guarding the dignity of the crown. To her, Camilla's presence during those years felt like a betrayal that should never have been allowed to resurface. Even after Camilla became queen, Anne struggled to see her as anything more than an outsider. Their interactions remained cold, distant, and formal. Anne never voiced her opinions publicly, but her actions were deliberate, keeping just enough distance, avoiding closeness, and rarely sharing even a polite laugh. To many observers, it was clear. There was no bond between them. The contrast between the two women only deepened the divide, and embodied old-world royalty, stoic, loyal, and private, while Camilla, more relaxed and publicly warm, symbolized a modernized monarchy stained by controversy. Their rare appearances together hinted at an unspoken clash. At one event, Anne was even seen quietly stepping away to avoid standing beside Camilla. The palace claimed it was a simple scheduling change, but those close to the scene believed otherwise. Anne's departure from her long-held royal residence only fueled speculation, especially after excerpts from a private letter surfaced. Without naming Camilla, Anne wrote of a quiet erosion of tradition and the loss of the values that once anchored the monarchy. What hurt and most wasn't just that Camilla became queen, it was that she did so despite the pain Diana endured. Though Anne and Diana had their own clashes, they shared a sense of disappointment in how the royal system failed those it claimed to protect. Now that Anne has stepped away from her duties, free from the burden of public restraint, the question remains: will the truth she carried finally come to light? Inside the palace, rumors swirl about a private journal and a confidential letter from Queen Elizabeth II that Anne left behind. These documents could shake the very foundation of the monarchy. Anne's journal, written with quiet force and razor-sharp insight, is said to contain candid reflections on the current royal path. Her unease with how popularity is replacing principle, and her skepticism of roles played by Charles, William, and especially Camilla. But it's the Queen's letter, entrusted to and before her death, that's said to hold the most damning truths. Allegedly, it contains Her Majesty's final fears about the monarchy's future, including references to Diana's death and the wounds it left behind. That the Queen chose, and not Charles, to protect it speaks volumes. She knew and would carry the truth, even if she never spoke it. Now, with King Charles's health fading and pressure mounting, the contents of that journal and letter loom large. Whispers suggest they could expose hidden decisions, the elevation of Camilla, the sidelining of Diana, and the crown's silence during scandal after scandal. Prince William, caught between two visions of royalty, his father's media-savvy modern reign and Anne's stoic traditionalism, may soon have to decide: follow the carefully curated path, or face the buried truths head-on. If he gains access to Anne's documents, they could become a compass, or a ticking time bomb. What happens next could redefine the monarchy. The Windsor family now stands at a crossroads, haunted by the silence and left behind. Her legacy wasn't built on spectacle. It was rooted in duty, truth, and unshakable loyalty. And though she's gone, the questions she left behind may echo louder than any royal proclamation. The real question is, will the monarchy dare to listen? Or will it, once again, hide behind smiles while the past keeps knocking at the door? Like and subscribe the channel for more updates.